You're listening to Cosmic Cousins Soul-Centered Astrology. I am your host, Jeff Hinshaw. Thanks for tuning in. Cosmic Cousins is dedicated to honoring the interconnectedness of our universal family through embodied health, self-discovery, and deeper learning. Cosmic Cousins is released on each new and full moon, and it is here to bring you back into alignment with the cosmos. So thank you for being here as always. Hey, Cosmic Cousins. Welcome back to another week of the show. I am Jeff Hinshaw. I am a teacher and a writer, and I write on topics such as astrology and tarot. I'm also a mentor, and I release this podcast episode on each new and full moon. And this episode is for the Libra Full Moon of 2022. So go ahead and bring your awareness to your body and your breath as we transition into that now. Take a deep, nourishing inhale into the lower back. This is the part of the body that Libra is connected to. So if you're able, you could place your hands here. Send some love to this part of your body. It's connected to the kidneys, the adrenals, the hips, the lower back, and really the entirety of the back body. So just take this as a moment to see what the lower back might want to communicate to you at this time. Breathing into the middle back. Breathing into the upper back. And just allowing yourself to listen, to tune in. And just carving out even just this moment right now to be present and loving with yourself is already bringing you back into greater balance, which is so much of what this Libra full moon is inspiring. So continue to connect to these parts of the body, the lower back, the hips, the kidneys, the middle back, the upper back. And as I offer you some of the insights and downloads on this Libra full moon, you can always bring it back to the body. This Libra full moon, it's situated right at the midway point of April. And I find this quite appropriate considering Libra is the sign of balance and equality. The soul growth card of the tarot for Libra is justice, rightfully so. And if you line up the major arcana cards in the tarot, you'll find that justice is the midpoint of the journey. And so there's something particular about this Libra full moon being right in the middle of the month that reminds me of justice in the middle of the major arcana. And just to realign us with the actual date, the Libra full moon is Saturday, April 16th, 2022 at 11:55 a.m. Pacific Standard Time at the 26th degree and 46 minutes of Libra. So you can look to that part of your chart to see what is being illuminated on this Libra full moon. But there's something about when working with Libra that I will often notice things, pattern recognition, spatial awareness, understanding of symmetry and duality. These things might be heightened for us during the Libra full moon. Full moons are times where emotions often feel heightened, where we can have things illuminated, things that have been living underneath the surface all Aries season long. And Aries season, March 20th to April 19th. This is a time where we may be more inclined to go headfirst into our physical ambitions. May be more inclined to go headfirst into our goals, striking the match to some new adventure. But the Libra full moon reminds us to take a step back and to recalibrate. Libra inspires this, this calm, cool, objective perspective. Libra reminds us to educate ourselves, to communicate from a heart-centered, peaceful, balanced place where we are considering the other person. And so both Aries and Libra together is really learning the art of clear boundaries, knowing that you are an individual, whoever you're in a relationship with is an individual, and that you come together in a beautiful way to uplift one another, to highlight each other's gifts. So if at all, what we could do on this Libra full moon is to practice compassionate communication. This is a great reminder for myself. Compassionate communication with yourself. Are you being hard on yourself? Aries season, we could be hard on the individual self. And so Libra is inviting us to practice compassionate communication with ourselves and also with others. What's particular about this Libra full moon, besides the fact that it's right there in the middle of the month, is also that we look to the ruling planet. Libra is ruled by Venus. Venus is currently in Pisces right now. The Aries sun is ruled by Mars. Mars is currently in Pisces right now. So both Venus and Mars are important to this lunation, and both of them are in the collective water sign of Pisces. And right now, I'm noticing outside it's starting to pour down rain. This is interesting. I had thought this before we got to Aries season this year, but I remember thinking it was an exceptionally wet Aries season of 2022. And I remember just kind of noting that because there's Venus and Mars both in Pisces, Jupiter and Neptune are in Pisces. And I thought to myself, I bet it rains a lot more this Aries season. I live in Portland, Oregon, where it rains a lot anyway. But I remember last Aries season, my butt was out in the sun, laying out on the beach by the river. And now it's been raining every single day. And on the exact Jupiter-Neptune conjunction, we got snow. It's the first time it's ever snowed in Portland in April. So obviously it's not going to be like this everywhere. It's not going to be raining everywhere. It's not going to be snowing. But how have you been sensing into this greater Piscean wetness for you over Aries season? Having the full moon at the end of the season, because after the full moon, we only have a few more days, and then the sun will enter Taurus. So this full moon is really kind of like this almost like this period or this exclamation point towards the end of Aries season. So to add to the mix of this Venus and Mars energy, again, Jupiter and Neptune are also in Pisces, and they aligned earlier this week. The exact date, I believe, was April 11th, April 12th, around that time period, just a few days before this full moon. Full moon, again, is Saturday, April 16th. But this conjunction of Jupiter, the biggest planet in our solar system, and then Neptune is a conjunction that only occurs in Pisces roughly once every 166 years or so. So this is the vast influence of Pisces on this Libra full moon is all pervasive. It's like we're surrounded by this ocean blue of compassion. It's sort of like this fog, this mist. And so even though it's Aries season, we still have a great deal of unknown. Pisces is a wide, emotional, spiritual, mystical sign of great unknown. It is our mutable water sign, which mutable energy is shape-shifting. Water is also traveling to the lowest places. It's a collective water sign, meaning it's connected to not only my emotion, but your emotion. Everyone tuning into this podcast emotion, everyone on the entire planet's emotion. This is the collective water. So is it your emotion that you're feeling? Is it someone in the room with you or someone on the other side of the planet? This is a lot to hold. We're moving through a collective experience and you can kind of get pulled into it. And so it's important when there's so much Pisces energy is to also know the types of environments where you feel supported. So if you're in a moment of healing and transformation, if you're deeply empathic, we could be greatly sensitive to the energies of the world around us. This is always true, but that's heightened right now. Pisces speaks to the ways in which we process collective emotion. We're processing a lot right now. Pisces speaks to themes of reincarnation, connecting with our guides, the empathy of universal compassion. Pisces is collective karma. It's source. It's that love that unites all living beings everywhere. And so even though this full moon may very well bring up dialogue around who you are as an individual, Aries sun, and how you balance that in relationship, Libra moon, more than anything, this is a full moon to be in deep listening. The need for rest is important with this much Pisces. The need for prayer, the need for surrender and release is great. And for those of us who are consciously working with our empathic gifts, particularly those with strong Piscean placements, we may be feeling more overwhelmed. There could be a sense of feeling tired, lethargic, more than usual. And so be gentle with yourself and the world around you. We are processing so much of the pandemic. We're processing so much of the collective emotion and beyond. And so Aries Sun, it reminds us to set clear boundaries. Libra and Pisces are here to remind us to focus on peace. Libra through cooperation, communication, and beauty, and Pisces through great forgiveness, through reflection, through universal love. Another notable aspect to this full moon lunation is that Pluto is in Capricorn, square the moon in Libra, and square the sun in Aries. So Pluto in Capricorn is at the 28th degree and will station retrograde at the end of the month. So it's only making it up to 28 degrees this year. We'll talk more about that in the energy update and also in the conversation with Heidi Rose Robbins and Ellen Fondiler that is coming up in just a moment. In our conversation, we go deeper into the invitation of the Libra full moon. We talk about the Aries and Libra polarity. We explore progressed astrology. We look at a composite chart of both Heidi and Ellen's charts coming together. It's a wonderful conversation, and it was such an honor to be able to connect with them in this way. I'm sure a lot of you are already familiar with their work and their offerings. They host the podcast Chart Your Career, which is a podcast that brings the tools of astrology together with great career counseling and advice. So at this time, let's transition into a few updates and announcements from me, and then we'll transition into the conversation with Heidi and Ellen. Thank you again, as always, for tuning into the podcast. I do have some announcements and updates. I have opening availability for both astrology and tarot healing sessions. These are one-on-one sessions. We work either on Zoom or over the phone. And I have some openings for this upcoming month, May and June. There may be some openings for July coming up soon, too. There are some shifts that are taking place for me in my offerings and my practice. And we're coming up on eclipse season. So once we transition through this portal of the Libra full moon, we move into Taurus season, which is eclipse season. So as a reminder, we have the Taurus new moon, partial solar eclipse on April 30th. And then we have the Scorpio full moon, total lunar eclipse on May 15th. And we'll go deeper into that in the energy update after the conversation with Heidi and Ellen. But, there's some shifts that are taking place for me. I'm a Scorpio midheaven, so this is my public appearance, my career. So I will be taking a step back from all platforms, social media, from podcasting over the next few months, likely throughout the summer. So if you're wanting to work with me, I will have some new announcements of ways that I will be staying engaged with the community. It'll be much more of a tight-knit community than information that is put out to the public, to everyone. So if you are wanting to continue to stay in touch with me, sign up for the Patreon for the show or sign up for the newsletter. And there's links in the show notes for that. That's a great way to stay in touch with me. And I look forward to it. And so that's all the announcements I have for today. At this time, let's transition into our conversation with Heidi Rose Robbins and Ellen Fondiler, the co-host to the podcast Chart Your Career, a podcast of sharing astrology tools together with great career counseling. So today with us on Cosmic Cousins in honor of the Libra full moon and Libra's connection to collaboration, partnership, and communication, we have not one, but two incredible humans with us here today. We have the co-host to the podcast Chart Your Career, Heidi Rose Robbins and Ellen Fondiler. So welcome to Cosmic Cousins.
Yay, thank you. So good to be with you.
Yeah, this is your third time being here, Heidi, and Ellen, this is your first time.
Yes.
Yeah, and I've been looking forward to this moment for a while because I love Chart Your Career podcast. I love what you're doing there.
Oh, that's so lovely.
Always good to hear. Always good to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people that listen to this podcast will really enjoy Chart Your Career podcast. So if you haven't checked it out, I'm sure you'll check it out after this episode and our conversation. And we're gathering for the Libra Full Moon, which felt quite appropriate for many reasons, because as I was saying, it's connected to partnership and communication, but both of you have quite strong Libran energy in your chart, as well as Aries. You both have that polarity activated in your chart. So let's start there. I think I'd like to introduce each of you individually first in that Aries sort of way, and then we can talk about your partnership and collaboration. And so we'll start with you, Heidi, since you are an Aries. It feels right to start with you. Heidi is an Aries sun with a Capricorn moon and a Leo rising. And a little bit about Heidi. In addition to Chart Your Career, Heidi is also the host of the podcast, The Radiance Project, is the author of many different astrology and poetry books, and has been a practicing astrologer for 25 years. It's an honor to have you back on the podcast. One of the questions that I had for you, just kind of right out the gate, was I had noticed in the way that you communicate about the full moons is that you will often say the full moon of Aries season. And I was curious what tradition you're pulling upon when you talk about the full moon in that way.
Yeah, well, I grew up, my father was a great student of Alice Bailey and the Alice Bailey books, and primary book that my astrology stems from is esoteric astrology. And in esoteric astrology, what we celebrate is the rays of the sun touching the earth unimpeded by the moon. And so, in fact, during the full moons, we're looking to the fact that the moon is actually kind of out of the way of the solar force, because though I appreciate deeply and honor the moon, in the esoteric tradition, it is considered to be a position of habitual behaviors that we can maybe outgrow as we lean towards our rising sign. So at the full moon, we're actually honoring the sun's position, interestingly enough.
Yeah. And I do find that interesting because you honor the moon so much with your moon notes too.
Yeah, it's a paradox. It's a strange paradox in my life. I think my father was so adamant through the teaching about, the moon as a dead entity, and that, that we're moving away from it, that I had to sort of redeem the moon in some way and honor the beauty of I want to just say how important it is to acknowledge our body and embodiment and the beauty of the physical form, even though in many spiritual traditions we're like, well, got to get beyond the body. We're souls. And it's true. And I always feel both and.
Yeah, I can relate to a lot of that with my Virgo moon. I think I might fall more into the wretched states, as you call it, with the Virgo moon. But yeah, I feel, as we're building momentum to the full moon right now, I feel the Aries themes heightening for me in my own personal life. So I like thinking of it as the full moon of Aries season, but also leaning into Libra, which can offer us that little bit of balance too, that we might all be craving at this time.
And ultimately, you always talk about this, Jeff, it really is. It is the balance. It is the middle point. And ultimately, we're looking to find the territory where these two signs blend. And that's the potency as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Which we feel so beautifully with you as having Mars and Libra across the wheel from your Aries sun. So maybe we'll get into that a little bit today. But I think this is a good opportunity to connect to that other side of the wheel with Ellen, who is a Libra sun. And so Libra sun with Libra rising and an Aquarius moon. So a little bit about Ellen. Ellen Fondiler has had many different careers and has a really inspiring story. She's a lifelong entrepreneur. If you're ready for this, there's quite a list here. It's pretty amazing. Has worked as a death penalty attorney, a baker, a documentary filmmaker, an award-winning landscape designer, and a nonprofit director and fundraiser who has raised millions to bring an educational project and eco-sanctuary to her community. How does it feel to hear all of that read back?
All true. You know, I know I did all those things. I'm aware that I did, but you know, it's sort of amazing looking back because I'm in another place right now. So I feel good about all those things, and I am not yet tired.
That's great. Yeah, well, you're taking all of that now and you're channeling it into your current offering. Yeah. I am. So could you tell us a little bit about what your current offering is?
Well, I'm a career coach, and I use a process called design thinking. So instead of thinking about what you want to do next, we go through a series of looking at what energizes you, what engages you. We look at your life close in. We iterate outwards. We make 5-year plans. You come up with some possibilities. You prototype. So it's about taking small steps. It was developed by 2 Stanford professors. It's a very popular course at Stanford. And what I love about it is it really enables people to think beyond, their minds. And we look at what gets in your way. What are the things that stop you? They're called dysfunctional thoughts. How can you reframe? And how can you just move forward? Because so many people want to move forward and they just don't know how.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm feeling a bit of your Aquarius moon here. I think the big picture thinking. I'm curious for both of you, where do you think in Ellen's chart this kind of lifelong entrepreneurial spirit is reflected?
Oh, well, I think Uranus at the midheaven, and I think Jupiter in Aries in the 6th house. She's just constantly has a new idea in the most inspiring way, and she'll every other time we talk, she'll have a new idea, which is amazing. It's like, it's not only for us together, but for my own business or for her business, there's this relentless positivity about the new. And I think it's the Uranus at the top that's always like inventing, and the Jupiter in Aries in the 6th house. That's what I think, Ellen. What about you?
I agree. And I think it's also, I don't know if this is true, but I think having Neptune and my sun conjunct each other, I really like going to like the other side of the veil. I like sort of peeking behind the curtain and seeing what else can be done. And I think that is a great source of inspiration and creativity and imagination.
Yeah. And then having Jupiter and Aries across the wheel
and Aries
allows you to bring that into the physical plane. Yeah. I mean, the polarity that both of you have with Aries and Libra is quite amazing. And, I think that we feel both of your strong entrepreneurial leadership through your Aries placements. And also both of you are incredible communicators who have podcasts, you're writers, you collaborate with people a lot. And you really do also bring a balance, both of you, between the intellectual aspects of life and a bit more of the creative or the cultural aspects. I know at the beginning of your podcast, you always have a moment where you check in about what movies and TV shows you're watching. So Ellen, are you watching anything right now?
Well, I just finished the season of, I'm finishing things, which maybe because we're not quite at the beginning of Aries, but finishing the season of Billions. I finished The Dropout, finished Bridgerton. So I'm finishing a lot of things, the last round of the Academy Award movies. And then there are some great things coming up that I'm really looking forward to that I'm about to start.
I just started watching Dropout, so
it's
I'll have to
really
check in
good
with you at the end of that. Yeah,
it just gets better and better and better. She's terrific.
I saw a movie last night. I saw the new one that just came out, Everything Everywhere.
That is supposed to be so wonderful.
It feels very Jupiter, Neptune, and Pisces. Yeah, so it is very of the moment. It's very dreamlike, and it's kind of like you're on an acid trip almost, and you're seeing all of these different lives kind of meld together.
Yeah, that's next on my list. I really want to see that.
Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned that. I just will say that I can't remember what astrologer it was, but they were pointing out that Wizard of Oz came out with Jupiter and Pisces.
I read that too.
Not the Jupiter Neptune, but Jupiter and Pisces. So we're seeing that 12-year cycle at least. And, it feels like a similar, like we're in a colored, multicolored universe suddenly,
Oh, I love knowing that. So I have Jupiter and Pisces in my chart, and I I love Wizard of Oz. I mean, a lot of people do, even if you don't have Jupiter and Pisces in your chart. But I do the Find Your Inner Dorothy personal myth making. So I've done that with Heidi. I'll just remind you of yours, and I'll share Ellen's with you too. But Heidi is we could say the ambitious ram, Aries sun, in an important business meeting, Capricorn moon, entertaining us all with your warmth, Leo rising. So that is your inner Dorothy. Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
And if we want it, we could change the Capricorn moon to climbing a mountain and not make it so business oriented too. Depends. There's some flexibility there in the way that you want to work with it. And so Ellen, that makes you, we could say, the beautiful peacemaker, Libra sun, under the starry night sky, Aquarius moon, ensuring that the revolution will be balanced or peaceful, Libra rising.
We can only hope.
Yeah.
So good. Those are so good.
Yeah.
Jeff, I have to steal those for my next retreat
and
honor you and put them in the notebooks because they're so good.
I know. I was thinking I could maybe publish it into a little book or something at some point just to have it.
You should.
Because people ask about it all the time. So yeah, this is just one question I had about the Aries Libra polarity for both of you. But what do you feel is the most magical and beautiful aspects when this polarity comes together in harmony?
Wow, that's a good question. I was about to go down the rabbit hole of this is what I don't like about my Libra self, and this is what I don't like about my Aries self.
Yeah.
Well, Ellen, do you want to start, or I'm happy to.
You start, and then I'll end.
See, we just demonstrated Libra for you.
There it is. We were
just the astrological chipmunk.
No, Heidi, you go.
No, I think that what Ellen and when I think about the blend and the beauty of these signs, I think that Aries obviously has the beautiful, potent seed or idea, but then Libra invites others to join. So it's not a solo endeavor. It's not, this is my idea and I'm the only one to do it. Libra encourages first the one-on-one relationship, but then I think that one-on-one relationship can grow. So I do think it is, when they work well together, it's an invitation to share bold, beautiful action and ideas.
I love that. And an example is when we started the podcast, I wanted to do it with sorry, my allergies are starting up. But I wanted to, it was the middle of the pandemic, and I kept saying, maybe we should wait. And my sweet Aries friend said, no. Let's just do it. Let's just put it out there. And I said, well, it's not quite right. It's not quite perfect. And she said, no. And I just had great trust that her Aries energy would take us to the right place. And I think another example, I was listening to a podcast the other day, Rishikesh Hirway. He does Song Exploder. He does all sorts of podcasts, but he has a podcast called Partners, and just started its second season. And he talks about and he has really interesting people on. Like this year, he just did Lin-Manuel Miranda and his partner in the theater. I can't remember his name. He's going to have Roxanne Gay and Debbie Millman. So very interesting combinations of people. But when he talks about partners, he says the most important thing in a partnership is love. It's just such hard work. And unless you have that love and that connection with one another, it's just not going to work. And Heidi and I have such a seamless partnership. We never bump ever. And if one person needs to change something, if we just totally get along. And I think the whole basis of that is a really deep love and respect for each other.
I did have a few listeners of the podcast write in, and this is making me think of this question. But Hens Crossing writes in, how did the two of you meet?
Oh, yes. Okay. So my dear friend Jolie and Ellen, you guys were great friends, right?
Yes.
And Jolie mentioned me to you, right?
Yes. Jolie, it was my birthday, actually, 11 years ago. And I hadn't seen Jolie. We lived in the same town, but I just hadn't seen her in a while. We ran into each other. And she said, oh, my God, I want to get you a birthday present. You need to meet my friend Heidi. So she got me a reading with Heidi. Of course, I fell in love. And I went to Heidi's next, so that was October. And then I think I went to your March retreat. And the rest was history. And then we started to do years later, but we really wanted to bring astrology and career together. So we started to do the Chart Your Career offering, where Heidi does a reading for somebody, and then I do their career questions and what's going on in their life career-wise. So then out of that, I thought, oh my God, we need to do a podcast.
Yeah, I think also there was a very pivotal moment that I have to thank Ellen for, that she often will say, let's go to this workshop, or let's go here and experience this. And there was a very important workshop that she took me to, our friend, Alexandra Franzen, where I really did a lot of thinking over those couple of days about how I wanted to think about myself. And that was at that workshop that Ellen invited me to. I started saying that I was a poet with the map of the heavens in my pocket. That's when I started to think about it that way. So I always thank Ellen for bringing me to that workshop, because I wrote a lot about my business at that time that I'm really living into now.
I'm hearing a lot of reflected in the way that you met was through other people and through sharing of ideas, even just getting a chart reading with Heidi is like the first encounter. Did you have astrology in your life before Heidi?
Yes, I've been interested in astrology for so many years, and, read Stephen Arroyo's books and just dabbled and had some sort of program on my computer and did my friends' charts. So I've always had an interest in astrology.
Well, I think it's cool that you're merging your gifts together and you now have this podcast. This is the little surprise I told you I had up my sleeve, but the Libra full moon is always a time of the year for me when I start to practice and meditate on my relationships and partnerships. This is what we do during the Libra full moon. And so one of the ways that I do that is I look at composite charts. So I was curious if you've ever looked at your composite chart together.
I guess I might have long ago, but I have not done it recently. So sometimes I think about it, but I haven't looked at it. So please. It
always astounds me when I look at composite charts. It just everything clicks in. And so for those of you listening who aren't familiar with it, a composite chart is composed by taking the midpoints of the combination of the two people's planets. So for instance, the sun in Aries and the sun in Libra. So Heidi, sun in Aries, Ellen, sun in Libra. Where does the sun meet? Well, your relationship is a Capricorn sun, because it's the other cardinal sign. It's the midway point. So I'm going to share the screen so the two of you can look at this chart. But right there, we see sun in Capricorn. And so you're shining a light to people's careers, Capricorn. Yeah.
Interesting.
Love that.
You both have Saturn by the sun. So Heidi, you are a sun in Aries with Saturn in Aries. Ellen, you're sun in Libra, Saturn in Libra. So Saturn meets in Capricorn as well, next to the sun. So you're sun, Saturn, and Capricorn. Yeah. And then the moon. Heidi, you're a Capricorn moon. Ellen, you're an Aquarius moon. And the moon is on the cusp of Aquarius in Capricorn at the 29th degree in 47 minutes. So you're a Capricorn Aquarius cusp moon.
Wow.
And then your rising sign is a Virgo rising.
We are a hardworking duo.
You really are. So let's do your inner Dorothy for your pair, your relationship. Yeah. So we have the responsible sea goats, sun in Capricorn. We could say at an important business meeting, Capricorn moon, but let's include the Aquarius cusp. So the responsible sea goats in an important business meeting under the starry night sky, offering your services to the world, Virgo rising. So this is your pair here. I want to highlight just a few other things that I see, and then we can reflect on it. But you have a Gemini midheaven, which feels really right with the way that you two both communicate and talk. And you kind of have this, sibling energy, I would say, that Gemini connects us to. And then Jupiter and Gemini up here at the midheaven. So just expansive, full of knowledge and information. And then in the 10th house is Venus in Cancer, which is balancing all of that Capricorn energy. And so, a big part of your audience, I would even say this is kind of taking us into the 11th house, is a lot of people who have connection to home and family, their mothers, they're creatives. You work with a lot of women. I could see that reflected in Venus. And so there's this strong polarity of Cancer here. There's a lot of other things going on, the North Node in Aries in the 7th house. So this is your composite chart. What does it bring up for you when you see it reflected to you?
I love it. I'm so glad you have put it before us. I always feel with Ellen that it's a very karmic relationship in a way. I feel like that. And when I see the Venus in Cancer, I almost feel like the lineage of family. You feel like family to me,
yes,
Ellen.
Yes, very much so.
And we both have such a deep connection to our families and therefore treat one another, also as deep family somehow.
Yes.
And it makes a lot of sense though, because really, all we do together is work. I mean, when I see the Capricorn and Virgo, but we love it. That's the thing.
We get excited.
We're both such workers.
Yes.
So, I love the Dorothy language around it too, under the night sky. We're at a business meeting under the night sky. And I think it makes a lot of sense, the Virgo rising, because why else are we doing this podcast but to hopefully be of service and help guide astrologically, use the tool of astrology in career. It's such an untapped potential.
Yeah. And I love the Gemini on the midheaven. I mean, on the midheaven, because, we talk about books, we talk about movies. We just, there's so much Gemini in our work and in our podcast and our connection. Like if I see a great movie, I'll text Heidi and say, you have to go watch this right now.
Yeah.
So, yes.
And I have to laugh because so many people that are dear and near to me in my life have Saturn conjunct the sun, and so, I mean, obviously we both have Saturn conjunct the sun and in our composite Saturn conjunct the sun, but everywhere I look, there's Saturn conjunct the sun in my life. So it makes so much sense.
Yeah. Well, I'm experiencing that transit right now. So if you have any advice for me, because Saturn's in Aquarius and it's a few degrees from my sun right now. So how might someone work with Saturn conjunct the sun, whether it's in a natal chart or in a transit?
Yeah, I think it's always about finding the way that we don't have to have it feel like an oppressive force, that we're in fact breathing in the uprightness of our spine and feeling the inner voice of authority and really trusting that voice of authority. And I think for you, it's a graduation time. You do such excellent work in the world, and it's an ownership of that work and an ongoing concretization of that work. But I think really ultimately it's an opportunity to, I'll use the word, trust yourself and feel your innate authority.
Which is so much of what the both of you teach and share when you're doing the Chart Your Career podcast. And I'm looking at the chart ruler here too. So if it's a Virgo rising with a Gemini midheaven, it makes Mercury the ruler of the chart. And it's Mercury in Sagittarius at the 28th degree. And so you're also really expanding people's minds and to allow them to go towards their vision. It's making me think of the esoteric phrase for Sagittarius, which I learned from Heidi. Do you want to share that one with us?
Sure. I see the goal. I reach the goal, and then I see another.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tremendous upliftment. Anybody with Mercury in Sagittarius has the potential to be the mentor, teacher, inspirational voice. Yeah.
And I think it's so important to encourage people to follow what they're dreaming or what they're sensing, even if you do it in small little steps. Even if I like to say prototype it, but sometimes we make something so large, and if we break it down into a small step, and I know you've done a lot of things, Jeff. You've moved to Portland, you got a dog, and these are big, big decisions, and sometimes we get paralyzed. We want to do these things and we can't. So if you slowly allow yourself to take small steps, which is, I think very Sagittarian, you just like point the arrow at your goal and you start making steps towards it.
Mm-hmm. And it helps to know what you're pointing your arrow at. So having that vision, which I think maybe in a lower form of Sagittarius could be a bit scattered or not sure where they're pointing the arrow. And so having some sort of lens like astrology or a podcast that charts your career, it helps to bring that into focus. I did have another question that came in from a listener. Daughter of the water. writes in, what planets and houses do you start with when charting one's career? What's the process?
Well, it will always vary, but there are definitely, depending on the question, but there are definite points that we look to. We look to the midheaven because that is the point that rules the career. We look to the north node of the moon because I like to think of that as the mini rising sign. And the rising sign is so fundamental in terms of our life purpose. You can look to the sixth house for sort of our daily work, right? But I most of all, I would just say I listen for the obstruction. I listen for what seems to be in the way. And maybe that's where we have to, maybe it doesn't have anything specifically to do with the career in the chart, but what needs to be opened or made more available within the chart. And so you could start with the moon. You could start in any place where there might be a tricky test going on.
Yes. And you also love to look at the progressed moon, moon and sun, because, the progressed sun stays where it is for a long time. But Heidi gets so excited when a progressed moon is moving from Pisces into Aries, and it's in one place for 2.5 years. And sometimes when you say to somebody by the middle of next year, this energy is going to change, it's very comforting to know that you're not going to be in the same place forever.
And I think sometimes I just look for the greatest light in the chart, like the greatest beauty, I want to say. And I just remind people of it, what's available. And we so that we can sort of outshine what is in the way through reminding us all of, my gosh, look at this conjunction here. It's like, it's a treasure trove. There's so much in a chart that can uplift, encourage, direct.
Ellen, have you gone back and looked at your progressed moons and how they relate to all of your different career shifts?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I probably have off the top of my head. I don't know, but
I bet Heidi might even know.
We'll have to do that at some point. And I think when we were working together one-on-one for a while years ago, I think we did look at it, but it would be interesting maybe we could do that on one of the podcasts.
Oh, that would be fun.
Trace that. That would be interesting.
Yeah, it would be fun.
I would love to hear that. I know so many people are interested in progressed astrology. And so Heidi is a great resource as someone, if you are wanting to deepen your studies on progressed astrology. I think you have workshops or even handouts on your website that you can get.
Yeah, I have a progressed moon workbook that takes you through. You get a list of the progressed moon shifts, and you can actually explore it yourself throughout your entire life. So, yeah.
And what I love about the progressed moon is, we all have these charts. Like I have all of those planets in Libra, and sometimes I love my Libra, and sometimes it drives me crazy. It's just so much Libra, and yet the progressed moon reminds me of when you have a wall in a house that needs painting and you decide to sponge it. So there's this like color on top of a color, and the original color comes through, but you have a whole new energy that you put on top of that color. And it, to me, is, I guess, me who loves changing careers, just likes having like a new persona to try on for 2.5 years.
Oh, maybe it would be nice to reflect, just hear what our progressed sun moon is. We could each go around and just share our unique combo of the moment.
Right. Well, my progressed sun is in Gemini. And I think Jeff, you and I have talked about this, but the minute it moved into Gemini after 30 years of Taurus was when I started the podcast and started my moon notes. So it was a profound shift. So that I have another 26 years of the progressed sun in Gemini, which is all teaching and writing and communicating in a lot of it in my 10th house of career. And then my progressed moon is back in Capricorn. So it is a time, I sigh heavily, It is a time of hard work, but also like, I would say reaping the steadiness and from the practice of the many years, reaping the steadiness and structure after so many years of doing this.
Well, it shifts your inner Dorothy to the curious twins in an important business meeting, which sounds like you and Ellen.
Yes.
There we go.
I love that.
The curious twins. That's great.
And my progressed sun is I think I have another 2 or 3 years at the end of Sagittarius in my third house, I think. And my progressed moon is in Virgo in my 12th house. It just sort of entered Virgo, maybe my 11th house, just entered Virgo. And so that's where I am. I'm just off of having my progressed moon in Leo, which was a lot of fun. And I'm a little nervous about it inching its way towards Scorpio, because Scorpio and I don't necessarily get along, but I'll call Heidi a lot.
You got to waste. You got to waste
years to that.
I got a few years to go.
And I'm wondering if that's will be when your sun enters Capricorn too.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I think my son's going to enter Capricorn in like another 3 or 4 years. Maybe it'll be close. It'll be close.
I'm right now progressed Aries sun. It just moved into Aries.
Yes.
Which is interesting. It feels more like, I always feel at the beginning of Aries season that it's not a full steam ahead, but it's more of a waking up from the slumber of Pisces. Mm-hmm. So I kind of feel like raw and exposed and like a newborn baby in a lot of ways. It's an interesting feeling, but I imagine as the years go by and I get deeper into my progressed Aries sun, that I'll start to feel that momentum building. And then my progressed moon is in Sagittarius, so it's double fire for me right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can you feel that? Are you feeling fiery?
I feel it, and it's interesting to take into consideration too the current transits with Saturn being conjunct my sun, because it also feels like a time of hard work and structure. And so it's new for me to feel all this fiery energy coming through, but I have responsibilities like a dog to take care of, certain health things that are coming up that aren't allowing me to maybe get on a plane and go to India right now. You know, we have the pandemic, so I feel that a lot with Saturn and Aquarius. So it's learning how to use that fiery energy in new ways. And so I think I feel it most at this moment in time when I'm like taking my dog on a hike, and it's just like vast nature out here in Oregon, which feels quite Sagittarian to me. So it's important for me to be in big open spaces, even if I can't get on a plane and travel or go live in an ashram somewhere in another country, which my soul definitely wants to do too. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I love that for you. I love it for you. It's going to ignite, it's such a lovely blend with your Aquarian energy. So.
Yeah. Thank you. So we're coming close to the end of our time together. And so I thought we would bring awareness back to the Libra full moon. And just as a reminder for us, the Libra full moon is Saturday, April 16th at 11:55 a.m. Pacific Standard Time at the 26th degree of Libra. What are we reflecting on for this Libra full moon? I know that I'll pull up the chart too for this moon, and maybe we can talk about some of the things that we are reflecting on and seeing expressed in this chart.
Yeah, and there's the Pluto square too, not exact, but within 2 degrees.
Which in a lot of ways I found interesting, because we have Heidi, the Aries, Ellen, the Libra, and you do chart your career Capricorn, and you help people transform their careers. And so, Pluto and Capricorn has its own, themes collectively, which we've been seeing, death to the patriarchy is like the main one that I've been hearing with Pluto and Capricorn. But in our own personal lives, I've been feeling Pluto and Capricorn as me really working through outdated societal pressures and allowing myself to really transform into my power and career as an entrepreneur. I've been sensing it in that way. I've also been sensing it in me letting go of any kind of conditioning that doesn't feel in alignment with my values. There's so many different ways we might feel it personally. So what are you reflecting on having this, the T square?
I'm just going to go with it because I was thinking about it this morning, not necessarily in relationship to the full moon, but it is something to do with the Libra Aries theme, where sometimes what I find with my Mars in Libra and my Saturn conjunct the sun in Aries is that I tend to want to be all things to all people. Like the Libra energy is like, but I'm this, and I can be this, and I can be this for you. And I'm at a breaking point with that on some subtle, profound level where I think, even though I am an Aries, and a lot of people would be like, you're so Aries, I still think there's a part of the Aries that needs to be empowered by the Pluto. And there's a part of my Libra that needs to be more carefully chosen. So there's something about, for me, Pluto in Capricorn the whole time has been a deep surrender, a deep surrender and a deep empowerment. And currently, the way that I feel about Pluto squaring the sun, with this Libra moon, this full moon, this moment, it feels like an important moment to stand forth and be very careful about my Libran tendencies so I can, with great precision, choose the next Aries action. Mm-hmm. That was a lot. Sorry.
Oh, I love that. That's perfect. And for me, my Pluto's in my 4th house right now, and transiting Pluto's in my 4th house. So I've been struggling with, where do I want to live? What feels like the right place? And I just, as an experiment, and because my son is here and I wanted to be closer to him, pick this place. And I'm really trying to not make it about the place, but to try to see, how do I feel and how can I best grow? And how do I take some of this energy that's happening and expand the way that I live my life? So that comes up for me. And specifically, tomorrow's Passover. So I've been reading a lot about Passover and the meaning, and we're doing a big Seder. And I'm thinking about Ukraine and about freedom and about the struggles. So I'm thinking globally about what's going on in the world and historically how all these traditions sort of play out. And it happens to be on the full moon.
And I just think we cannot separate this gorgeous Jupiter-Neptune conjunction that is continuing. I mean, it's like this whole full moon is steeped in the love and compassion of Jupiter-Neptune. And for that matter, yes, Venus and Mars all in Pisces. So there's some, the best of this would be an ability for more and more of us to feel the world's pain and to actually have it affect us in a way that creates Aries action.
Makes me think of your Radiant Life retreats, Heidi.
Yeah, you have Jupiter in Pisces, but I have Jupiter in the 12th house. So we share a sort of similar Piscean vibe. And for sure, the retreats are such a profound time to gather and connect with the highest light available, right? And gather in community in a secluded place and connect with the greatest source, I would say.
Which, Ellen, you're talking about partaking in ritual and having Seder as a part of your life too. Do you feel any of that reflected in the Pisces?
Oh, totally. I mean, I love Passover. Passover is a very profound holiday. And I just been doing some reading, and I've been looking at poetry. It's a time when you look at poetry and when you do reading and when you reflect upon, your history and your ancestors, and especially with what's going on in Ukraine. And it's about, courage and freedom and the ability to move to a place of unknown. So even though it happened thousands of years ago, the first Passover, it's also still happening now. So I think it's very profound, and I think it has a lot to do with Pisces.
Yeah, so even though we're in Aries season, there's just this tremendous amount of spiritual healing that's taking place. And sometimes when we're in it, it's even hard to put a name to. Like when you talk about Pisces, it's hard to really communicate about. And so, yeah, you did just host a Radiant Life retreat, right, Heidi?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you feel a difference having, Neptune and Jupiter in Pisces, which Pisces being the sign that's connected to retreat?
Yeah. No, it was a profound time. It was exactly 2 years after our last retreat. And sometimes the circle gathers and you just drop deeply, deeply into it. And this one pretty profound thing happened in the opening circle where there was a woman who has attended to many of the retreats. And somehow she was just this conduit for she's this love energy. She's a triple Pisces. And so she stood in love in such a profound way that opened the circle, that it was almost like she was our I don't know how to explain it. She was the threshold. She just stood in it, welcomed it, and the circle became imbued in it. And I felt it deeply throughout. And it was like everyone was hungry and thirsty to offer love to a palpable circle of fellow humans. And of course, the artistry, the Pisces artistry, so much poetry, so much beautiful music, so much movement, and Pisces brings all of that in.
And I will say that Heidi is an extraordinary facilitator. Not everybody can take a group of 24 people and be able to touch everybody individually and hold that energy and bring people to a higher, better place.
Thank you, Ellen.
It's true.
Which feels so Piscean, that ability to touch all people. And I feel like as we're talking about this Piscean energy, there's just so much love that we all share with each other. And so even though, we're here in the astrology community, we're just talking about the stars and, all of this like very intellectual language that maybe not everyone would understand. It is a language of love. And what did you call it before, Heidi? You said... it's like a map of heaven.
I said I'm a poet with the map of the heavens in my pocket, but I could just as easily say I'm a lover with the map of the heavens in my pocket, because for me, that's the primary force, and that is really all I care about. How we love one another.
Yeah. It also has me reflecting on your father, who recently passed away too, and Michael Robbins. So we sending a lot of love out to him, and his spirit lives on. And one of my students right now that I'm mentoring has actually just learned about his work, I think, during his passing. And she's been going into the archive of his like workshops that are, so I don't know where they're posted actually, but she was telling me about that. So I'm just thinking about that connection to spirit too. And to all of our loved ones who have passed away. Just feels like I feel my grandmother with me more right now with all this Piscean energy. If we allow ourselves to pause and to listen and to just be, with that, it does feel very available to us right now. And so it's a very unique Aries season.
Exactly. Beautifully said.
Yeah.
I just want to say, Jeff, that, and I say this to you every time, but you're such a force of loving intelligence and goodness in this world. And I always feel better after I speak with you. And I also feel always deeply inspired to keep doing what I'm doing. So I just want to thank you for inviting us, because it really buoyed me, and hopefully it was helpful to others as well.
I looked at our composite chart.
You did?
I did take a peek.
Let me
Good.
see.
I don't have it up on the screen right now, but I am Heidi and me. So Aquarius sun, Aries sun, we meet in Pisces. Our sun's in Pisces. And our Venus is conjunct the sun in Pisces. And our Mercury is conjunct the sun and Venus in Pisces. And it's in the 11th house. And then we have an Aquarius midheaven. Yeah, so that felt right to me.
I love
100%. Yes.
I love that.
Oh, I love that. You have to send that to me. I would love to look at it.
Yeah. And then it has a nice Taurus rising. Nice and embodied, which is something I think that we both share in our astrology practices is the embodiment portion of it.
Yes. Well, I felt as I said, and when you were first on my podcast, the Radiance Project, I just felt like you were my old friend and you were my new friend at the same time, but of old for sure.
That was such a lovely experience. That was back in like 2018, and I got to go downtown Los Angeles. I had just moved to LA and meet you in person at this beautiful studio. It felt so surreal. It's surreal for me to look back on now because all the interviews are over Zoom.
I know.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, right. We used to do those interviews in person.
Yeah. Which maybe one day we'll all get to gather together. I'd hope so.
That'd be great.
Do you have anything exciting coming up? Any new Chart Your Career offerings or anything else that you'd like to let us know about?
Well, we've been doing some interviews where we talk to people about 3 career events in their life, like 3 major career events. And Heidi looks to see what was going on astrologically. And I talked to them about what was happening career-wise. And it's fascinating. The progressed moon plays a big part in a lot of these events. And I really love that edition. And also, we love questions. If people please send us questions, we love to answer people's questions. And you send them to Heidi at HeidiRose.com. Heidi Rose, you think I would know this by now?
Yes,
Heidi
that's right.
at HeidiRose.com. And just a question, a minute, audio question, a minute or under with your birth information. And we really, really love hearing from our community.
And then they play that clip on the podcast.
Yes.
So you might get to hear your voice on the podcast.
Which will probably scare everyone away. No.
I'll have to send one in sometime.
Please do. Please do.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be so much fun. That would be wonderful.
Okay. Well, thank you again for carving out the space in your life. And it's just been a joy to connect with you in this way.
Thank you.
Thank you,
And
Jeff.
Listening to your podcast is like going on a beautiful journey. You just take people on this sort of like the Wizard of Oz. You take people, it starts out black and white, and then it's color at the end. So it's beautiful. So thank you. Thank you for letting us be a part of it.
Okay, so that was a great combo, and it set us up nicely to look at the transits for the next 2 weeks. So we're going to be looking at the energy of the astrological weather from April 16th to April 30th of 2022. So this takes us from the Libra full moon to the Taurus new moon. So let's start with the sun. This is the ruling planet for Leo, and it represents our conscious reality, what we are aware of, what we're shining a light to. And so the sun is traveling from the 25th degree of Aries to the 10th degree of Taurus over the next 2 weeks. So we are in the final few days of Aries season, and this is the time when we really start to embody the soul growth card for Aries, which is the Emperor. So structures and boundaries are put in place that allow for us to be strong individuals. So feel into that. We now have a better sense of our identity. This is the final 5 degrees of Aries. Who we are, what we stand for. We've spent the last 30 days or so shining a conscious light towards our wounds and our healing, Chirons in Aries, taking responsibility and accountability for our own personal journey. Sun in Aries, sextile Saturn in Aquarius. And so as we approach the end of Aries season, we have one final task, which is on April 18th. April 18th is Monday, and my calendar tells me it's tax day. So on April 18th, this is the day that the sun in Aries is square to Pluto in Capricorn at the 28th degree. And so with Pluto in Capricorn, this has been a longer transit. Pluto's been in Capricorn since 2008. And so there's a great deal of transformation taking place in the Capricorn parts of our chart and also collectively. And so transformation taking place in the ways that we show up in this world, how we contribute to society, not in the way that we've been told to by society, but in the ways that feel authentic to our values, that help realign us with the earth, that help us create the future that we want to see. Capricorn is very much about future generations, while also honoring the past. So we're transforming, processing, intergenerational healing, psychological awareness around the past and the structures that we've built and how those structures are no longer in alignment with the evolution of this planet. And so with the sun in Aries square to Pluto in Capricorn, there's this final tension that is pushing us towards being better individuals, Aries, who are ready to come into our power in our careers, Capricorn, into our public appearance, into our leadership, into being role models, into being responsible adults. You know, this is a notable transit because this is the last time that the sun in Aries will square Pluto in Capricorn. Because this time next year, at the start of Aries season of 2023, Pluto will ingress into the fixed sign of Aquarius. So really feel into this transit and allow it to push through and burn through any karmic energy that is ready to be transformed so that you can come into your power as an individual. So yeah, this Aries season is kind of ending with that intensity. There's a bit of a grind to it, but it is all in preparation because as the sun enters Taurus, we're entering into eclipse season. And so April 19th, the sun enters Taurus. And, this is the season. It's a time to highlight our sense of value and worthiness, to accept the gifts and the bounties of Mother Nature. This 30-day period, April 19th to May 20th, is a time to reaffirm our values. So it's the middle of spring on the northern hemisphere, the middle of autumn on the southern hemisphere. So I think of middle of spring as a time when we go on picnics and we enjoy sensual pleasures. We tend to eat good food instead of, being in that Aries energy of new beginnings. We start to settle into our body. We settle into some sort of fixed routine, fixed earth. But it's interesting. It's eclipse season. So let's transition to the moon. This is important to understanding Taurus season. The moon is traveling from the Libra full moon to the Taurus new moon partial solar eclipse, which is on Saturday, April 30th at 1:28 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And so as the moon is waning towards new over the next 2 weeks, the importance of both of these signs, Libra full moon, and Taurus, new moon, are both ruled by Venus. And so Venus is currently in Pisces right now and will continue to stay in Pisces throughout the next 2 weeks. So this highlights the importance of spirituality, of deep rest, of release. And the moon going from full to new is also a time of going inward. And so, yes, it's eclipse season. It's a time of year where we start to make shifts and changes internally that can sometimes be externally. And so on Monday and Tuesday, April 25th and 26th, this feels notable because this is when the moon there's a 2.5 day period when the moon will be in Pisces. Again, April 25th and 26th. This feels important because on these days, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Neptune are all hanging out in the collective water sign of Pisces, but then the moon moves through here too. And so this is the most planets in Pisces that we will experience all year. It's 5 planets, 4 planets and 1 luminary. And so even though Pisces season ended back in March, this whole month of April has been very emotional, very wet, very, what would be the word? It's a culmination. Pisces is the culmination. It's the ending. It's the closeout. So before we entered April, I noted all this Piscean energy. And I thought that living in Portland, that April may turn out to be rainier than usual, and it has been. I've been kind of paying attention to the actual physical weather in tandem with astrology. But how have you been sensing this more reflective nature of Pisces? Pisces does not necessarily always have to be reflective and internal. It's also a sign that's connected to transcendence and travel and expansion. So you might be feeling some of that too. And we all experience Pisces energy in different ways. But it is very informative to understanding this upcoming Taurus season. Because again, Taurus is ruled by Venus, and Venus is in Pisces. Black Moon Lilith has just entered Cancer. Black Moon Lilith I don't always bring into the dialogue unless there is a major ingress or transit happening. But Black Moon Lilith is not a planet. It is the shadow of the moon when the moon is farthest away from the Earth in its orbit. And so Black Moon Lilith is just entered Cancer, where Black Moon Lilith will be for 9 months. And it travels from the 0 degree of Cancer to the 1st degree of Cancer over the next 2 weeks. And so Black Moon Lilith speaks to darker themes. It is a place in our chart and in our transits where we can experience the shadow. It could be anything related to sexuality, anything related to motherhood, anything related to our queerness, to our witchiness. And so moving into the sign of Cancer, it is much more emotional, connected to our home, to our mother, to our family. So pay attention. For those of you who have energy in Cancer, you will be getting a visit from Black Moon Lilith at some point over the next 9 months, where there is an opportunity for you to come into your wild power, your transformative power. Mercury is at the 9th degree of Taurus and is moving to the 0 degree of Gemini over the next 2 weeks. On April 17th, and this is just the day after the Libra full moon, Sunday, April 17th, Mercury joins with Uranus in the sky. And so this is very much, you might be feeling it on the Libra full moon too. But when Mercury and Uranus join together, there are electric ideas and new thoughts, cosmic downloads available to us in the sign of Taurus that allow us to be more deeply connected to the earth, to our bodies. On April 23rd, Mercury joins the North Node of Fate in Taurus. So there is a fateful realignment around messages that you are receiving, that you are communicating, and short-term travel. And then Mercury enters Gemini on April 29th. Venus is traveling from the 11th degree of Pisces to the 27th degree of Pisces. This is the ruling planet for Taurus and Libra. Wednesday, April 27th, Venus aligns with Neptune in the sky. And the moon will also happen to be in Pisces that morning. So Venus coming together with Neptune, this is a beautiful, creative, compassionate energy. In its shadow, our relationships may feel like we're getting pulled into some sort of fantasy or delusion. In its highest expression, this is expressing love through music and dance and art. It's a very inspirational time period. And then on April 30th, the same day as the new moon solar eclipse in Taurus, Venus lines up with Jupiter at the 27th degree of Pisces. 27 degrees and 58 minutes, so almost at the 28th degree. So this is interesting, that Taurus new moon at the end of the month, the solar eclipse. We are evolving towards Taurus at this time. The North Node is in Taurus. So I encourage you to meditate on Taurus in your birth chart, and this new moon will likely bring some sort of awareness around the Taurian themes of your life. And it's interesting, again, Taurus is ruled by Venus, and Venus on this new moon is conjunct Jupiter in the sky in Pisces. So Venus, love and money, Jupiter, expansion, growth, abundance. So there is a lot of spiritual abundance available to us. It reminded me of the Wheel of Fortune in the tarot. Jupiter is connected to the Wheel of Fortune. So we put the Wheel of Fortune next to Venus, or the Empress in the tarot, on this upcoming new moon. And so the Wheel of Fortune encourages us to ask the question, well, what is fortune? You know, if it's in the sign of Pisces too, fortune is not necessarily the physical realm, not necessarily the money or the items that we own, but it is much more about being in alignment with our soul's calling, being connected to a higher power, to our greater purpose here, to compassion, to love, to forgiveness. You know, abundance comes through that experience of forgiveness. So it is a quite beautiful energy. It likely is going to clear up a lot of things, a lot of endings, a lot of releasing, a lot of openings. So be gentle over the next 2 weeks. Mars is also in Pisces. So over these 2-week period, Mars is traveling from the 0 degree of Pisces to the 11th degree of Pisces. So when Mars is in a water sign, I think of a hot tub. I think of a jacuzzi. You know, Mars brings the heat. Mars also brings force, so I think of power washing your deck with Mars and Pisces. It's a very strong and forceful cleansing power. It also holds great potential to bring about relaxation and restoration if it's used properly. You can think of taking a hot shower. But you can also burn yourself. So be mindful of this Mars and Pisces energy. Direct your ambition, your Mars ambition, towards spiritual healing. Direct your ambition towards rest, towards dreaming. Go on a walk with your guides. This is a time of the spiritual warrior, Mars and Pisces. So we get about 6 weeks of Mars and Pisces. The collective emotion may be feeling extra fiery or charged. So be mindful of that. This could be a great time to spend alone or with others in shared community that are also part of your healing and transformative journey. Mars in Pisces, I also think of like a sea captain. Mars is ambition, and it's ambitious, setting sail maybe through a storm. Pisces can sometimes have fog. It could be stormy, but it could also be sunny with rainbows coming out. It's changing. Pisces is always changing. So just note, over the next 6 weeks period, our energy level might be going through fluctuations. Mars in Pisces is like taking a shot of whiskey, or going on some sort of cleanse where you're drinking lots of water. It has different expressions, and so be mindful of what you are drinking. Mars in Pisces is also like a lifeguard. Mars has that kind of physical energy. It's a lifeguard diving into the waters to save a person from drowning. Make sure you have on your own life vest first. Make sure that you are trained to be a lifeguard so that person doesn't pull you down with them. Pisces energy can be a savior to other people. And so just be mindful when Mars in Pisces that you're directing that energy towards your own spiritual journey first. So all of this is to say Mars in Pisces is a time to face our fears. Pisces can bring up fears. Facing our fears head on, Mars. Go for what you want, what you dream. While also, Pisces is a sign of the great unknown too. So if you are ambitiously heading into the unknown, there could also be the invitation to pause and to wait. Prayer, devotion is a Pisces practice, so channeling that fiery Mars energy towards that could be useful too. So any placements you have in Pisces will be getting an extra boost of attention and focus during this time period with Mars, with Venus, with Neptune, and also Jupiter. Jupiter travels from the 24th degree of Pisces to the 27th over the next 2 weeks. And again, then on April 30th, the same day as the new moon solar eclipse in Taurus, Venus lines up with Jupiter at the 27th degree in 58 minutes. So any placements you have from 24 degrees to 27 degrees of Pisces will be going through an expansion over the next 2 weeks. Saturn is hanging out at the 23rd degree of Aquarius to the 24th degree of Aquarius over the next 2 weeks. Not too much to report on here at the moment. The North Node of Fate in Taurus is square the Saturn and Aquarius point. So for those with Aquarian energy around these points or Taurus energy or any fixed signs, you might be feeling some sort of shift in your ability to embody the Saturn and Aquarius principles of being responsible towards liberation, being responsible towards community, towards communicating truth, and also a leveling up in your ability to work with astrology. Aquarius is definitely a sign connected to astrology. So these are some of the notable transits. Again, Uranus, we already talked about this, but on April 17th, Mercury joins with Uranus in the sky at the 13th degree of Taurus. So radical new ideas for communicating truth that is setting us free. If we're embodying it more in a physical way, Uranus and Taurus is electricity in the body. So Mercury wants to move things, wants to move the hands, wants to shake the body, wants to go on walks, wants to talk, wants to travel through the park when it's in Taurus. So this is, that sort of spontaneous Uranian trip, Mercury, short-term travel, where it brings you deeper into connection with nature and with your body. So you could feel a little bit destabilizing around this time period, and really throughout all of Taurus season, Uranus is in Taurus. And so there is that sort of cosmic information that Uranus brings to the earth realm here. So we'll check in more with this when we get to the Taurus new moon. This is a 2-week period of so much culmination with all this Pisces energy. We are expanding our consciousness and our connection to spirit. Our psychic receptivity is swelling. So again, I encourage you, drink extra water, get extra sleep if you're able to, pay attention to your dreams, be in listening. I was just in a restorative yoga pose, which right now, that's what I'm practicing, restorative yoga. I'm not in a very fiery practice. I had my legs up the wall, which is a great pose for Piscean energy. Pisces is the feet, so elevating the feet. The hanged one in the tarot is connected to Neptune and Pisces. So I had my legs up the wall for about 10 minutes, and I started to have these memories resurface from about 12 years ago, which is the last time Jupiter was in Pisces. And it was a memory where I was out at the ocean, and it was a very emotional memory. And I had kind of repressed it. I had kind of pushed it down. And the fact that it was resurfacing right now allowed me to feel into how much I have been growing and expanding over the last 12 months. But also that healing doesn't happen in a straight line, that there is these spirals. And so there's still this deep pain that is coming up that I'm being asked to sit with and to face. But I've now grown and evolved and accumulated wisdom. And so I can meet that part of myself from a more mature place, hopefully, yeah? So there is some reparenting. Pisces does have a lot of inner child healing with it too. So pay attention to the reparenting patterns that are coming up for you. This is a time where we are also connecting with our elders. Pisces is connected to newborn babies and also to those who are passing away from this earthly realm. So reach out to those who are on the periphery of your life, on the periphery of society, if it feels safe to. Remember, put on your life vest first. And, there's a sense here where if it's not safe for you to reach out to certain people, you can always do it in the spiritual psychic realms too. And so if there's anyone, especially Libra Full Moon, it brings up things around our one-on-one relationships. If there's someone you're not in contact with right now, but you miss them and you'd like to reconnect with them, but it doesn't feel appropriate, then drop into a meditation. Visualize yourself sitting in front of that person and just notice what comes up. You can say, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. If those feel appropriate to say. And just notice if you say, thank you, what are you thankful for with your connection with that person? So there's a lot of emotional and spiritual healing taking place right now. If we are open to it, it's available. And this is all clearing us out for when these planets shift into Aries, we'll be starting new cycles. And so deep bow to each of you. Blessings to you on this Libra full moon. Thank you again for listening. If you'd like to support the show, you could go to patreon.com/Cosmic Cousins. Again, sign up for the newsletter if you'd like to stay in touch. We have 2 more podcast episodes during this season cycle of Cosmic Cousins. I'll be releasing an episode on the Taurus new moon in 2 weeks. That's the partial solar eclipse. And then on the Scorpio full moon in a month, which is the total lunar eclipse. So, take sweet care, cousins. Sending you a lot of love. Remember, drink extra water and take deep breaths.